Everybody, welcome to ComicCon.com. I am Anton, and I am here with your daily slice of Comic Con goodness. I'm very excited today. We have some wonderful cinematic news. Fantastic film, The Amateur, has just dropped in theaters, and I am very, very, blessed to be sitting here with Ken Nolan, one of the writers of said film. I'm stoked, Ken. It's so glad to see you. I am very excited to see you today. This is
Thank you,
amazing.
Anton. I'm very happy to be here.
That's awesome. So your award-winning writing has been seen across screens, big and small. And with the new film hitting the theater, there's a ton of buzz behind it. Before we dig too deep into that, can you give our audience just a little bit more about yourself, like and sort of who you are in the grand scheme of things, if you will?
Yes, I started selling screenplays in the 90s. So I sold my first script when I was 27 years old. I was very disappointed that I hadn't made it earlier. I was like, it's too late for me. And then as soon as I sold that one, it was harder to sell the second one. And I was terrified. And finally, what changed is I read this Quentin Tarantino interview, and he said, I'm just a transcriber of what the characters are saying. I'm like a court reporter, and something clicked in my head. And I remember going home from Barnes and Noble with my Starbucks to my studio apartment, writing a spec script for 11 or 12 days in a fever. And I sold that one, and it kind of solidified me as, okay, this is a real writer. But it was a really scary, hard experience. And then since then, I've just been writing nonstop. And Black Hawk Down was really another moment in my career where it really helped to make a really cool movie. That I hadn't made a movie before that. And my lawyer said, "You got to get a movie made." I'm like, "I'm trying." So that was 2001. And even after that, you still have to constantly struggle and sort of try to get a job and self-generate or go on interviews. So I've been doing it ever since. Thank God.
Well, and you have a kind of a fantastic library behind that. I mean, Black Hawk Down, TNT's The Company. In my humble opinion, the two best Transformers films, The Last Knight and Rise of the Beast, those are my favorite. Uh,
Wow. All right.
I mean, they really are. Like they're the ones that we watch on regular rotation when we're
That's
working at the
great.
house.
I
So
love The Last Night. So
it's a ton of fun, right? It
yeah,
has like that fantasy element, but there's like a lot of heart to it, and the sci-fi vibe kind of comes in. It's very Saturday morning cartoon, and for a guy like me,
yeah,
that's the thing that I looked for in a film that like you can put it on when you're hanging out, you can put it on when you're trying to like get out of your own way when you're writing a story. Like it is a really
mhm,
fun film.
yeah.
So yeah, it's one of the two that I really return to the most.
Oh,
Um,
that's nice to hear. Thank you.
oh, thank you. You made it. It's
I
fantastic.
mean, I was like, okay, bitter critics, we made this for 11-year-old boys and people who want to have fun.
Right.
Sorry, it's not, waiting for Godot. We didn't promise you that. There's robots. Stanley Tucci is dressed as a wizard. What else are you expecting?
Exactly. But that is always for me, sometimes you see it, right? And it feels like in media sometimes we can get a little jaded where you see these like two-star reviews or somebody on, a social
Yeah,
media app has some kind of opinion and like people are totally welcome to their opinions. That's great. But you have to like take a step back and be like, who are these movies really being made for? Like, who's
yeah,
the target audience? I'm sorry, it's not like some person who's very angry that the robot wasn't painted the exact color they wanted it to be. He had a giant freaking sword, and like you said, there's a wizard. Like,
yeah,
take a beat,
yeah.
right? I'm just excited that there's
Yeah.
stuff happening.
You knew
So
what you were going to get into in this movie. Why are you upset? It
exactly.
delivers.
And that's yeah, God, that's so refreshing. It makes me happy to hear you say that. It's a little bit validating, honestly. So thank you. You've made my
You
day.
were right to like this movie, Anton. Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm really excited. So your newest film, right? The Amateur. It kind of is hitting me from two different sides. I think it's a ton of fun because I love my wife dearly. I mentioned her earlier. She's my favorite person in the world, right?
Oh,
And
that's
like,
good.
I mean, she's the person I want to hang out with 24/7. So if, the worst possible scenario for me is something happens to my wife, right? And that's
Yeah.
sort of that from the beginning. That's the inciting incident of what is about to play out in this sort of film. And then the
Yeah.
other side of it is like I really like sort of an everyman or just a smart guy who maybe isn't as adept in the, John Woo of it all, the kicks and flips and ninja stuff that like we typically
Yeah.
see in these action films. I love the action films, don't get me wrong. But I like when that kind of character is injected into sort of the space that they may not typically be seen. And so immediately that hooked me. Like that,
Good.
I saw that there was the novel, and that seems like a ton of fun. So like how did you, because it feels like this film has been in production for a minute, right?
Yeah.
And you've gone through what global pandemics and
Hmm.
studio wishy-washies and all sorts of stuff has kind of gone
Yeah.
down. This is like a true labor of love. I mean, like,
Yeah.
can you kind of give some insight on the process here? Because it's fantastic that you got this over the finish line.
It's a long process, and it's really not for the faint of heart to write a screenplay like this and to keep going back to it over and over again from 2014 till release 2025. So my child has grown up during this whole time. I mean, she was a 6 or 7 year old when I sold this to Fox. So Fox had this property, The Amateur. My producers, Josh Parker and Dan Wilson, called up and said, "Hey, there's another Littell book. Have you read it?" And I said, "I think so. I have it right here." So they said, "Take a look at it because it's their property and we could make it work, blah, blah, blah." So I wrote a 50-page treatment on spec to show Matt Riley, the production executive, this is what we're planning to do. It took a long time. He read it and he said, "Great, let me give it to my boss." His boss said, "It's not the right time. Oh, the project's dead." Then a few months later, Matt calls the producers and says, "Okay, we need that thing Ken wrote, The Amateur. How fast can he turn it into a script?" So suddenly, like, "Can you do this in 6 weeks?" I said, "I think so. I've got 50 pages, so I'm ready to go." So we turned it into a script. Long story short, we turned it in. They loved it, and then it sat there, which is what happens. Then Scott Frank came in and did some very precise rewriting work, which was going to make it get made. And his stuff is still in there. That didn't help push it over the edge. I can't remember why. Then 20th Century Fox gets bought by Disney. And I say to Dan Wilson over the years, like, "What's going on with The Amateur? I think it's such a good script." He's like, "Oh, Ken, we got to wait to see what the edict is at Disney and what kind of movies they can make." So for years, it just sat there. Then Dan said, "Hey, I got Rami Malek interested in this character." And then he kept saying, "Rami loves this character. He's really pushing for it." So it was really Rami Malek, I think, galvanizing, getting the momentum going again. But I think he had to sell too. Like he had to tell people, "I really want to do this." "Okay, well, how about," I don't know what they said to him, but I'm assuming they said, "How about Bohemian Rhapsody 2?" Uh, what is this? It's not really IP, and you're not really, you know, twisting people's heads off, and you don't have a laser beam eyeball, or, you can't fly. I love all those movies, but
Right.
it was, this movie shouldn't exist. It should not be out there. It's not based on a comic book. It doesn't have a superhero. It doesn't even have a Jason Bourne type hero. It's got someone that we can really empathize with and see ourselves in this situation. And like you were saying, you can tell Charlie Heller's character finding Sarah, a girl like Sarah, Rachel Brosnahan, he's never going to find anyone like this again. So
Right.
when she is killed, his life is basically over. So at that point, he doesn't really care if he lives or dies. He just wants Sarah to be remembered. And so that's the long story of how this came to happen. And then Rami got James Hawes involved, or the producers did, and then Rami approved him, and then they had all their meetings and how to make it better. And then my friend Gary Spinelli came on to rewrite me and said, "I'm just doing a few weeks of work." And then they kept him just working and working and working. So it's a long process.
I'm excited. I mean, it's one of those films where like, you get the teaser and then you get the trailer and you're like, you kind of you sink into it, and I think you've hit the nail on the head where I don't know if I speak for a lot of people. I'm just speaking for myself here, but there's a bit of fatigue. I love the laser eyeball and I
Mm-hmm.
like the superhero.
Yeah.
I like my suit is also Teflon coated bulletproof ninja stuff. Like that's rad. It's super
Yeah.
rad and it's a ton of fun, you know. I
Yeah.
love the power and all of it. But there's something so endearing about this guy who's just like, I love my wife, and you guys took that away from me, and now I'm not a
Yeah.
ninja man, I'm not a grizzled cop. I'm just gonna do this the best way I know
Hmm.
how. And
Yeah.
there's like a sweetness to it that really just,
Hmm.
I mean, it caught me in my chest, and I was like,
Oh,
I have
that's good.
to see this film, right? Like,
Yes. Yes. People in the theater when I saw it can I say spoilers or no spoilers?
I mean, nothing huge if you don't want to
Okay.
go there. Yeah.
When a character close to Charlie Heller has something bad happen to her, I heard people kind of sniffling, and I went, "Oh my God, this is working." The emotional core of this movie is working. Yes, you've got a few action scenes, but the driving force is this character. And my friend said, "Hey, I saw your trailer. I really liked it. I really want to see it." And I thought, what are people tapping into? I think it was him walking away from the explosion and flinching, which people really
100%.
like.
Yeah,
That's how you would act. You wouldn't walk away cool with your hair blowing around.
right.
But
Where he's running next to the car and she's in the
yeah,
car and they're leaving,
yeah.
like the very beginning, that's sort of like establishing their
Oh,
relationship and the few quick cuts.
so good.
Oh, I
Yeah,
mean,
it takes its time. It takes its time to build up that emotional connection, and then the movie ramps up and gets going. But thank God it took its time. It didn't go right into you wake up, he goes to work, hey, your wife has been killed. And we have no basis for liking her or knowing her. Um, yeah, so I'm glad that I got to write a movie like this, even though I would kill to write Zack Snyder's 3.5 hour Justice League, which I watched in the platinum version or the black and white. I watched both of
right.
them. I love all those movies, but there's something about writing something that could actually happen that I don't know. It's a challenge. I'm not able to blow things up or shoot everything on every page. It's a much harder job. I mean, for me at least.
I think you've done something fantastic. Like honestly, the journey that this film has taken from conception to production through all the twists and turns that you've taken to get it there, you being sort of a champion of it, you working with everybody. I mean, the switch ups that have happened, it getting this
Mhm.
across the finish line is a titanic effort in itself. Yeah, from internally, you're one of the people I can point to and say like, "Hey, this is what happens if you just keep doing the work. Like this is what happens if you keep writing." I mean, you have not just film credit to your name, you have a novel to your name. The Spawn is rad. We didn't get to talk about that.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan
Yeah,
of Lovecraftian horror and things that come from the sea, especially when
great.
there's cults involved. We haven't
Oh
even
my
gotten
God,
there,
thank
but
you.
it's not that I'm not unfamiliar with your work, good sir.
Thank you. That's
Like,
amazing. You're well beyond anyone even a family member. Like you wrote a book. Yeah, I tried.
oh, you did well. You did well.
Thank you.
So I implore everybody to check this out. Go see it in theaters. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. It's out April 11th, and
Yeah.
it's going to be a rad time. Before we wrap up, again, just thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Where can people? Are you in the digital spaces often? Like, where can people kind of keep up with what you're
I'm
working
on
on?
Instagram somewhere, K Nolan 007 probably, because someone else had K Nolan. It's not like I do love James Bond, but
Right.
I'm on Instagram and Facebook. You can hunt me down and be my friend, and I'll chat with you and answer any questions, and or
Well,
you can mock
that's a
me
wide
openly.
door. We'll have a
Yeah.
book club. We'll talk about the Spawn next time. It'll be
Thank
good.
you. I would love to. The unread novel, I have it over there. I've got 10 copies.
That's awesome. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank
And
you.
hopefully we'll talk more about something cool soon.
That'd be great. All right. Thank you so much.